我叫 Daniel 老师，我帮我们的老师，我们的家人，我们的学生。Je m'appelle Madame Danielle, je suis la coordinatrice des langues à l'école Globe. Hola, buenas noches, bueno, buenas tardes. Yo soy la señora Daniel, yo soy la coordinadora de idiomas a Global Academy. So we're going to get started today. You guys are here to hear about our amazing language program. So like I mentioned before, click on your picture. Let me know your name, grade of your child, and also your language track. It does not say that there, but also put that in Mandarin, Spanish, Francais. So today we're going to talk about Globe's program model. Globe we always have in capital letters. If you've listened to our executive director's presentations, Miss Elliott Irby, we stand for Global Learning Opportunities through Balanced Education. So that part of that is our language model, our dual language immersion model, as well as our socio-emotional learning as well. We're going to go through our program expectations, so where we're looking to be at what grade level, and then how you guys can help support from home. So our Globe model. What is Globe's immersion model? So type in the chat for me whether we are 100%, if we are a two-way program, or if we are a 50-50 program. What do you guys think? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to put your answers in the chat. And Katia, if you mind, if you can tell me what some of the people are putting, whether they say 100, two-way, or 50-50.
Okay, so far Camille says 50-50. Ket also says 50-50. Let's see if anyone else has an answer. Does anyone think we are 100% or a two-way program? I don't think anyone wants to go after Camille and Kat put their answers in.
Camille Dorsey, that has to be her. All right, so guys, you are our classic OG Globers. Yes, we are a 50-50 model. We have 50% of our instruction, academic instruction, is in the language, and 50% of the instruction is in English. We are a one-way foreign language immersion program. Why is that? Because the majority of our students speak English at home. So the majority, we're learning the minority language at the school. So the L2 that students are learning is the minority language. So that's what we are doing, and I'll show you how that works. There are some things to note, the difference in immersion and translation. So we're going to look at that. And we're also going to look at immersion instruction versus world language.
Hola, yo me llamo señora Barreneche. Yo me llamo señora Barreneche. Yo me llamo Oli. Yo me llamo Oli.
So you can see that the teacher is not using English. Everything is, she's using authentic language and contextualized instruction. So she's showing herself and then the puppet to model that these are two different people, or, our mascot and her. So that's something that you will see a lot in our immersion program. You'll also see that in our middle school program as well. So our teachers always maintain the target language. This is very different from translation or straight vocabulary learning.
Going by, you can just say buenas, and that's good, buenas, instead of saying buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. The reason is, for native Spanish speakers, it's very important that the time of the day. So before noon, it's días, but after noon.
So you notice that there's not the context that we're saying good morning and good night. There's also the translation there. So that's very, very different from the way that we are teaching at Globe. To give you another example of what immersion looks like is the content. So we are teaching academic content in the target language.
On va compter ensemble. Un groupe de deux, deux groupes de deux, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Il y a 10 groupes de 2. On a compté 10 groupes de 2. Donc maintenant, tu vas prendre ton cahier de maths, tu vas prendre un crayon. Tu vas écrire 1 et la question que je te pose c'est est-ce que 10 groupes.
So you can notice that the teacher is modeling step by step the amount of groups, counting together and modeling. He is teaching Monsieur Felix, he's our 3rd grade teacher. He's teaching math. So our students learn math, science, social studies, reading and writing in the target language. That's very different from a world language program where you may have some translation, but it's mostly thematic based. So if you took a language in high school or in college, this might be more of an experience that you had, was more of a world language.
Avocado, aguacate, avocado, aguacate, banana, plátano, banana.
So this is more thematic based. So every vocabulary word and the verbs that the students are learning are based on a theme. So in this case, this is the theme of food. We're going to go into this a little bit more, but just so that you kind of have an idea of what that looks like. So that's very, very different from the picture and the lessons that you saw from our teachers at Globe. All right. So I also have something that I'm going to share with you guys in the chat. This is going to be something that we'll be using a little bit later, but I want you to have it during this time while we work together. I have some little worksheets and work activities for you guys. All right. So, benefits of DLI, there's a lot of great things that come from learning in this environment and having this type of instruction. There are lots of practitioners and researchers out there. There's Callahan, Lindbergh and Leary, Genesi are great practitioners and researchers of DLI, as well as Thomas and Collier. They're very well known. So if you study ESOL or you're in the type of environment that you've looked at that, they've done a lot of extensive studies over well over 10 years of hundreds of schools. These are really the great things that our students are getting. And even our middle school students, because of the professionalism in our staff, you know, they are also reaping the benefits of the immersion model, even though they're not having content necessarily in the target language. Here we've seen, you see diminished achievement gap for ELLs and the academic benefits. That's kind of for students that speak one of our languages at the school. So if they are native or heritage speakers of, or they're proficient, highly proficient in Spanish, Mandarin, or French, so they would speak that at home. And you get, you know, our students get to make new friends. In the future, they'll have great work opportunities, great cognitive benefits. The way that our students do math in the target language is truly incredible. And that's because of the hard work of our staff to give great instruction. All right, so allocation. In kindergarten, our allocation is a little bit different. So we have we don't have a simultaneous model of literacy. What we have is a sequential model. So that means that our students are learning literacy, learning to read in their home language, their L1, or the majority language, which is English first, before we start instructing in the target language. So you'll see here that there is the thematic curriculum in the language classes. So you will see a lot of those greetings, you know, family, food, sports, things like that, with our language teachers in kindergarten. We're practicing early literacy skills. So that's knowing that we read from left to right. We're going to look at the characters or the words as we say them. We're using the pictures to guide our reading. So students not necessarily are decoding at this point. They're just recognizing that a word means something on the page. Of course, math is explicitly instructed in the target language. So I'll let you guys see now is kind of what that might look like.
E R 三四五六
So even at the kindergarten level, the teacher is modeling highly contextualized, and you can tell that students are learning number sense, that a word or a symbol responds to an amount. So they're learning to count. In our program, students are not explicitly in kindergarten, they're not going to be having that math instruction. So what we might have are number talks, but not necessarily that kind of walking them through in English. Now, when we go to first grade, now we're dividing up the content areas between the two teachers. So we have a two-teacher model, or really almost four teachers, right? Because we have our wonderful TAs who are also teachers as well in the classroom. This is all based on the fact that we are right now a one-way foreign language immersion program. So what we're using is that promotion of the transfer between L1 and L2. So that's the majority language in English and our target language, which is our L2. So students are able to make those connections. They have the base in one language, they receive the instruction, and they're able to connect between those classes. Now, of course, we are a complete program. We're a complete package. When you come to Globe, you come for language, and it's an investment. It's a partnership. You know, students are invested, teachers are invested, and admin, of course, and parents. So we're all partnering together. After our immersion model, which is from kindergarten to 5th grade, we then go into our middle school model. So this is really important because always the criticism of immersion programs is the grammar or the vocabulary that students might have. This is where we get into the nitty gritty. This is where we go into higher proficiency levels, and we're starting to look at things like grammar, specific vocabulary, cultures, communities, government, especially for our 8th grade. In our Language 4 program, that is an adapted AP curriculum, so advanced placement for Spanish, French, and Mandarin. So they're looking at those types of conditions in the world, and really we're pushing them to be those global citizens, independent learners. Here's just a little bit more information about that. Of course, our pathways is always a partnership. We're talking with students, we're talking with families, and we're talking with our teachers. I'll always be with you guys as part of those conversations, whether if you are in our elementary program and you're going into 6th grade, which is the correct path for your child. So here, if you see, these are the graduation credits. Ms. Lamore, our assistant head of school, and I always do a middle school model talk, coffee talk. We'll go into more detail here, but just so that you know, once you are finished with Globe, you have all of the language credits that you need for high school. So students are finished. So what comes next? If we're finished, there's a lot of different opportunities available for our Globe students. These are just some ideas and some of the things that students have done after leaving our program. We just had our inaugural class, sort of, that just went into 9th grade last year. So, 2 years ago, sorry guys. And these are some of the things that they have done with their Globe education. This year will be the first year that our students will be eligible for the Global Seal. So what that means is that they are biliterate in English and in the target language. Now, of course, we do STAMP as our assessment, our third-party assessment in March with our 2nd grade through our 8th grade. If 8th graders place at a 5 or higher in all 4 parts of the test, they are eligible for the seal, as well as passing ELA for 8th grade, okay? This is a great achievement. There will be a few students that are in our standard pace for middle school who are now in our Language 3 level that will probably get this award. Many of our immersion students coming from level 4, Language 4, if they have a 7 or higher on all 4 parts, they can get that. However, the one exception is they'll need to take another test. So they'll need to take either the ACT and qualify or the SAT. So if you're thinking that you want your 8th grader to get that global seal, if you're looking for the working fluency, you will need to take another test. So just to keep that in mind, but that's something really, really exciting that we have for our students this year. We are in talks with I've been talking with our district coordinators in Georgia, as well as the Georgia Department of Education, and we're thinking of things that we can do to recognize our 5th graders as well. So some kind of seal that we can do for them, since we have our 8th grade seal, and then of course the seal of biliteracy that they can get in 11th grade. So just to kind of keep that on your radar, good things are coming. All right, so where do we want to be? What level are we looking for at all of our grade levels? How do you know if your child is on track? So what I want you guys to do, maybe our OG Globers might know this. This is in your packet. So I dropped a link for you guys in the chat. You guys can open that up because we're gonna look at this together. So these are the proficiencies that we're kind of looking at in Globe K through 8. So here on the side, you kind of have a description. Take a second to look at the descriptions. If you have a notebook beside you, if you have the PDF open and you're manipulating it, that's great as well. If you printed it out, draw a line. I'll give you maybe a couple of seconds so that you guys can think of which level is which description. And if you would like to put that in the chat, that would be wonderful. So Katia, if you're there, are some people answering? What are people saying for novice low? What is the description? What are we looking at as far as proficiency in novice low? So one of the biggest things that we're looking at when we're looking at proficiency is we're not looking at performance. So performance would be something that, you know, you practice one thing over and over and over, and then you can only do that one thing. We're looking at proficiency, that students are able to use the language in a fluid way. That's why we teach the way that we do. We don't teach isolated vocabulary. If a student doesn't know how to say something, we want them to know how to describe it and express themselves. All right, so a novice low. So we have over here short common expressions, memorize statements, putting 2 different simple sentences. Language production is beyond individual words, but clearly shows lack of ability to construct more than phrases. May have a simple sentence. Variety of sentences. Produces words in the target language with no connection. Does not have enough vocabulary. So this is really what we're looking at when we're looking at a novice low. We're looking at hello, goodbye. That's kind of where we are with the language. And it may mean that students are prompted to say these types of things. All right. So then what comes next? Short common expressions or memorized statements that may be combined together. Language production is beyond individual words, but clearly shows lack of ability to construct more than phrases. Variety of sentences that utilize different verbs to create independent thoughts. What do you guys think? Answer in the chat for me. All right, so now with our novice mid, we are moving beyond individual words, okay? Next, novice high. So these are all ACTFL descriptors. So this is the American Council on Teaching Foreign Language. That's what we use to kind of measure our proficiency in our students. So novice high. We have short common expressions, variety of sentences utilizing different verbs, a paragraph response with advanced language and complexity, logical organization of ideas, flow of sentences contains two unique and non-formulated sentences intermixed with variety sentences. What do you guys think? Tell me in the chat. All right, so we are looking at short memorized statements that may be combined together. So students are now able to create two different types of sentences. All right, intermediate low. What do you guys think here? Able to demonstrate intermediate high? Control of the language? A paragraph response with advanced language, variety of sentences, or logical organization of ideas, flow of sentences? What do you guys think? I'll give you a few seconds. All right, so we're looking at now we have several sentences. So we move beyond two to have different sentences and different verbs that students can use. Intermediate mid. Able to demonstrate intermediate high, a paragraph response with advanced language with complexity, syntactical and grammatical control, transitional words and phrases, logical organization of ideas with flow of sentences and statements, contains at least two unique and non-formulaic sentences intermixed with a variety of sentences to show connectedness. What do you guys think? All right, so we are moving into that logical organization of ideas, flow of sentences, two unique and non-formulaic sentences intermixed with everything else. That's what we're looking at here. Intermediate high, able to demonstrate an intermediate high control of the language. Complexity is evident. Transition words, connectors used correctly, efficiently, flow of response. So we're not at the advanced vocabulary yet. And then our advanced low, we have the paragraph response with advanced language complexity, syntactical and grammatical control, transitional words and phrases, and natural flow. Students have discourse at this level. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and that's what we mean when we're talking about proficiency and where our students are in the language, okay? These are these numbers and these levels you'll be able to see on our regular report card, not on our distance learning virtual report card. You'll also see these kind of level indicators on our stamp test. All right, so how do we find out that our students are at these levels? So in virtual learning, this is some ways that we do that. So of course, when we're looking at language, we're always looking at the 4 areas. We're looking at listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So these are some of the ways that we as teachers can know where students are. Now you'll notice that there's a different color. There are some lighter colors and darker colors. I've put in The darker colors for more advanced, older students will probably be using these types of things, whereas the ones in white or light blue are things that our younger students are able to use. Now, of course, you see here Loom presentation. So 4th, 5th middle school students are using Loom presentations. They're making their own Google Slides. Of course, we want to have global citizens that are in charge of their lives and independent. So that's kind of part of that. Students also make their own Kahoot quizzes, as well as teachers can do that to assess. Now, we also do project assessment, dialogues, discussions, debates, small reading groups, so book clubs and things like that. So those are other ways that we can assess our students. As mentioned before, we have our stamp in 2nd through 8th grade, where students are assessed once a year in March. So we will be doing that this year. Once we get closer to the time, we'll let you guys know whether it will be done virtually or depending on our hybrid model, we'll kind of see what that looks like. So these are some applications. If you're not using them yet, you will be using them in the classroom. So you'll be able to see those. All right, so where do we want to be? When our teachers are looking at the students, they're assessing them, they're working in the small groups, what are we looking for? This is kind of what we're looking for. Now, because our language teachers are incredible, this is a group of professionals that work really hard to make sure that our students stay in the target language, use the target language, and are exposed to whole language and target language all the time. So because of that, a lot of even our first graders are talking naturally with their teacher. So we may have some students that are actually at a novice high level, but in general, this is kind of the range of where students are at the end of the year, by the way. This is not after, we've had a little more than days that we can count on our hands of live lessons in language class. So this is the end of the year goals. All right, for 2nd grade and for our 6th through 7th, who are in our standard pace for middle school, this is kind of what we are looking at. In 2nd grade, the majority of our students on STAMP usually have at least 2 in 2 areas, usually in speaking and in writing, they're usually at a level 3. In other levels, they may be at a 1 or a 2. In general, the reason why we put kind of 2 levels here is because listening, speaking, writing, and reading may not always be at the same level. Of course, to get that global seal, we want them to be up at the top. So this is where we are looking at. We'll see a range in 3rd to 4th grade. Usually our 3rd graders get around a 4 to 5 in speaking and in writing on their stamp. Our teachers are doing a great job with Lucy Calkins and writing workshops. Students are very comfortable talking about writing, talking about their books that they're reading, that kind of thing. 8th grade, of course, that's where we're looking at. In general, a range around here. Fifth through 7th. And this is 7th grade coming from the accelerated pace for our middle school program. This is kind of where we are looking at. This is kind of the range of where students are performing, and this is where our goals for them are. In our 5th grade, usually the majority of our students are in an intermediate high, intermediate mid level in our test on STAMP. 8th grade immersion, we might have some variances, but this is more or less where we're looking at. We really want to get our students into that advanced low range. Now, this may, because of the context and the content, there may be certain things that students may, or areas students may score very high in an advanced low area. This may be something like talking about their family or their community. It might be more difficult if they have questions or they're discussing a theme about a different government, a type of government, discussing that. So they might have maybe an intermediate high in that kind of content or context. So that's why I say it's kind of fluid depending on what the context is that they are in, but in general, this is kind of where we are. All right, so how can you all help? So I have in that document that I dropped in our chat, if you want to look at that, if you want to take some notes, I have a little quiz for you guys. So I have some questions here. If you would like, you can take a notepad out and just write down 1 through 10, 11 through 20, if that's something that you think is good to help, or something that you do not think would be helpful. So this is, what can you do to help your child at Globe? I will give you guys a couple of minutes, quick minutes. To kind of write down, to think. All right. Are you guys ready to see the answers? Maybe you guys know which ones are correct and which ones are not already. Maybe. All right. So what you see in yellow is kind of like the pause, maybe. What you see in red is a no, and what you see in green is a yes. So Google Translate. This is not in red because as a parent, maybe you want to use it. That's great. Do not share this with your child. We are not a translation school. We do not want our students to feel like they have to have English as the base. What we're using is an immersion model. So students are learning to think in the language. So we don't want students using Google Translate at all. Now, if you as a parent would like to use it, yes, just keep it keep it to yourself, okay? Do not model how to use that with your child. That will very much inhibit them in our program. That will not be helpful. Dictionary. A visual dictionary is great for students. It's a great way for them to practice and see the picture and the word. We really want to stay away from translating word to word or making students feel like they have to have English to move on. Like, I have to know how to say this word in the language. We want students to know the word, not to just look it up and use it and forget it. We really want students to learn and be able to use the language and produce it actively. And if they're translating word by word with a dictionary, that's not helping them learn, and it's not helping them practice. Watching the mini lesson, maybe. No, we really want to watch the mini lesson. You have the chance to pause and rewatch. You know, in the regular classroom, we can't pause the teachers, and we can't go back, and we can't rewind. Now in virtual learning, we can do that. So please take advantage of that. I'll give you a few prompts that you can give to your students as well to kind of help them with this process. Pause word by word to understand. We don't necessarily want to do that first. What we want to do is kind of skim over the instructions. What do we recognize? Are there words that we see that we know? Then reread, kind of like the pausing of the mini lessons and rewatching. First, to get the idea, watching what the teacher is doing, watching the instructions, seeing if there's visuals there, are there emojis in the instructions, that kind of thing, and then rereading to kind of get the general idea. Sitting in on class, repeating the words to your child. It's very important to be enthusiastic and positive about the language, as you see on number 19. But repeating the words to your child and telling them to repeat is different for us as English speakers and native speakers of English. Our students are really incredible. Kindergarten through 8th grade, they really pick up the accent in a way that is more challenging for adults. And when we think as adults that we're saying it, sometimes we're pronouncing it a little bit different. So that's something to kind of let the teachers do and model for your students. We don't want to give them the answers. So encouraging the students is good, but we don't want to give them the answer like, say it, say this, because then we're doing the work for them. As our head of school, Marcia Hewitt, says, she says, you know, we're encouraging our students to be independent and responsible. You know, we want them going out into the world and affecting others. And we can't do that if our students are not independent, if they can't take care of themselves first. So we don't want to have them dependent on parents or dependent on English. We want them to be problem solvers. Writing Flipgrid answers for your child to read, that's kind of like a performance. That's not necessarily proficiency. So what we really want to do is kind of having it a natural thing. Of course, in kindergarten, it's going to take a little bit of time. But by the end of the year, we want the students to really be able to talk all about me and say things all about me and have that novice mid to maybe novice high ability to talk about those types of things as a whole at the end of the year. You guys who are in first grade, you kind of got to see that at the end of the year, see how your children were able to do that. You want to bring learning home. So having music, listening to podcasts, maybe listening to favorite shows on Netflix, changing the language and changing the subtitles maybe. If the child is in kindergarten, I wouldn't worry about the subtitles. The students are more looking at the visuals, listening. They're kind of taking in vocabulary and context. Once you're getting up into like Second grade, I would turn on the subtitles in the target language as well as the audio, so students can practice reading and recognizing the characters as they're said, or the words. Drill and practice, okay, that can be good, as long as it does not become something that the student dreads or does not enjoy. We really want to have language time as a joyful, fun time and not something that students feel overwhelmed or sad about, or feeling like it's a lot of work. It should be fun. Of course, if you have a nanny or someone who is tutoring, just making sure that they understand the GLOBE model. We have a wonderful, wonderful program. And this is something that's very hard. Our teachers are extremely talented, and it's not an easy thing. I have a lot of parents that ask me, who would you recommend to nanny or to tutor my child? But a lot of times these tutors don't understand that we really don't want you to use English at all. So that's kind of a conversation to have with them to make sure that they're modeling the same type of education that we give at our school. Communicate always with the teacher. Encourage your child to communicate with the teacher. So if you are at Upper Campus, your students have an email, they can email the teacher. They should be in contact with the teacher. We really want to have students that are in charge of their learning, that are independent and responsible, that can practice self-advocacy and also problem solving with the teacher, That's a great exercise to have, especially before high school. We don't want to say language is hard or GLOBE is hard. We really want to have positive language around what we're doing, because like you see with our teachers, they're fun, they're nice, learning is great. It's not, we don't want to have that kind of negative association, or to ask students, was it hard today? Hey, what did you do? It sounded like a lot of fun. Kind of just being encouraging on that side. Reading in English is great, or your home language, whatever your L1 is. Of course, in our middle school and kids that are at Upper Campus, they are reading some chapter books and different things. Middle schoolers, a lot of them are reading Harry Potter in the language, or maybe they're reading The Hunger Games, different things like that. That's fine. Before they're proficient in the target language and are reading in the target language, it's really important to read in their strongest language, whatever that is. You don't want to ask your child to translate what it says or look at the homework and say, what does this mean in English? What we're doing is thinking in the language, really. So that's what we're looking for. Having a buddy is always great. Or having language play dates. So somebody that you can FaceTime and talk to and practice in the language is always a good thing to have. All right, so tips. You as a parent should partner with your child as a coach, asking questions. So not being the one to answer the questions for the child, but really helping to promote that responsibility and independence in their learning. So when they're looking at a question or watching a mini lesson or something like that, we can ask, what do you notice? What pictures do you see? What did you hear? Making them look. One parent told me this past week when we had a conference, she came to my office hours and she said, I was telling him, look for the clues. That's exactly right. The teacher is going to give you clues. The teacher is going to use some kind of visual. They're going to model. They're going to say it a few different ways. That's really important. It's really important to make sure that students are watching and listening, especially during those small group times. Like I said, there might be little emojis in the instructions There might be a video that students can re-watch to understand what they're supposed to do in their activity or assignment. And then, of course, reaching out to the teacher. How do you tell the teacher that you don't understand? Not necessarily, of course, in younger grades in kindergarten, it's a little different. But once we're getting into third grade, and maybe even some second graders towards the mid to end of the year, you know, they can let the teacher know, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. You said to do what? That's really important. I don't know why this has a little X through it, but one of my parents told me that Miss Davis said, you know, we want to make language days in our house. So the whole day we're in the language. So the second the kids disconnect from their classes, you know, they're watching a show or they're on an app in the language, just like they would be in the classroom. So that's really, really nice to have that support. Having a good attitude, and then ways that you can use the language in the house or outside. So there's different places that you can go. The library has some different books. There's some restaurants, cultural events right now that are online. Dances, music, those kinds of things. We have several students that are highly interested in athletic teams. Dances, famous people, those things are great ways to get students engaged in the culture and the language. So here we're going to be putting some resources on our website in the upcoming weeks. So you guys will have some choices, but really we want you to choose 3 things, a podcast, TV show, or an app, and then just try to access that 1 time a week. So each one, try to do it once a week, just to help out in the language. All right, so we've made it to the end. I want you guys, you're gonna have a little quiz. So I can see kind of what you guys got from this and if there's any questions, things like that. So please join me in Kahoot. So what you are going to do is type in Kahoot.it. After that, you're going to enter this number at the top of the screen. So this number is 1627476. And you can even do this on your smartphone if you have a smartphone, or on your computer. And it is kind of strange because you do have to put Kahoot.it. So it's this one here. It's not .com. And I'll give a couple of, maybe 1 more minute for people to connect. And then we'll see who knows the most about Globe's language program. I also will be doing a session with the PTCC coming up next month. So if there are things that you guys want to see more in detail, I can go into those things as well. So kind of be thinking about that. I know one of the things one of our parents told me was that, oh my gosh, the theory, I don't want to know too much theory. Some families have said, I do want to know about different DLI models and what's different about those models as opposed to globe model. So that can be things to think about that we can kind of talk about next time. All right, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to connect. All right. Do our language teachers speak English to students? No, we never speak English to our students. If we were speaking English to the students, we wouldn't be following the globe model. We assure you guys that our teachers will always speak in the target language. That's really going to help our students in the long run. Oh, and by the way, if you are on a phone, you're going to be selecting the color and shape on your screen. You will not see the name. So you'll have to look at my screen to see the question. So it might be a little tough. Oops, I didn't get to see who was winning. Sorry, guys. What are the benefits? All right. Good job, guys. Excellent. Of course, we're not translating on command. Our middle schoolers have a little bit more of that metacognitive awareness, so they're a little bit better at the translation thing because they know, oh, you say it like this in this language, and then you say it like this in the other language. Our little ones, they're just thinking straight in the target language. So asking them to kind of do that conversion is a little bit, that's not what we're doing. So that was good. You guys saw that. Ooh, all right. This was our first question. This one should be fast. Awesome. Yes, very good. We are a 50-50 model. Ooh, and this person is on fire. All right, what does that mean? All right. Excellent. Good job, guys. Oh, nobody can beat this person. I don't know who this parent is, but excellent. Or staff member. This may be a staff member. Yes, good job. All right, let's see. We're not explicitly teaching math in English. This one, I don't know. We didn't really talk about it this time, so you may not know this one. Our families that have been with us for a while might know. that is what that means. Ooh. Yes, good job. Of course. We use the units of study, Lucy Calkins. Second grade will do one, they'll be doing one section of it. All right. All right. So we have all three. These are the things that we want to know and want to do. Good job, everyone. All right, I need to know who this parent is or this person is. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, Michelle, Vilma. All right, guys. I need to know who this one parent or staff member was. If you are that person, please let me know.
It's me.
It's you. Oh, wonderful.
Hi.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you.
I'll try to see if there's something that we can do if we have a little treat for you. Yes, of course. It's fun to do. So if you guys, as I mentioned, I'll have another kind of partnership with the PTCC. We'll do it at 8 o'clock sometime in November. And then I can answer some more questions for you. So if you have more questions, just put them in the chat for me. If you, PTCC will be sending out a survey to kind of get what you want to hear more about from me. So I'll be able to help you guys.
When will you be sending the resources? Is that for everyone or maybe on the Wednesday email? Remember the
it'll be on
you're
Wednesday
gonna
email. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Next week or anytime soon, I guess?
Sometime soon, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
De nada. Have a good evening.
Will you have a recording of this?
We are recording now.
Oh, okay. Okay. I came late. I just wanted to go over it.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Like I said, if you have questions, put them in the chat, then I'll have them later so I can plan to get you guys what you need, the information that you're looking for about Globe program and about your child, how to support all of that. Thank you guys so much.
All right, I'll go ahead and stop recording.